Jung defines the persona as the social mask we use to present ourselves to the world. It is the self we show in social environments, at work, in relationships, on social media, and at family gatherings. The persona is, for example, the competent professional who seems to have everything under control, even when on the verge of an internal collapse. Or the always cheerful, funny person who makes everyone laugh, but who, when they get home, feels empty, exhausted, and often deeply sad. Jung said something profound. The persona is a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. In other words, the persona has a dual function. It exists so that we can function in society, so that we are accepted, understood, so that we can play necessary roles as a son, daughter, friend, boss, professional, partner. Without a persona, we would live exposed, vulnerable, like open wounds. We would not be able to adapt to group life. We would not know how to set boundaries or protect ourselves. But there is a danger, a silent, almost invisible, but devastating danger. When we start to identify too much with this mask, when we confuse who we are with the persona we use for the world, we distance ourselves from ourselves. We stop living authentically. We begin to stage our lives. We become characters in our own story, prisoners of the role we once chose, or that was imposed on us. Think of a person who, since childhood, learned that they would only receive love if they were strong and independent. They build a persona of self-sufficiency. It is that person who solves everything alone, who never asks for help, who seems to need no one. But inside, that same person is terrified of being abandoned. They are terrified of showing weakness. And because of this, they remain alone, without deep connections, because they believe that if they let their guard down, they will be destroyed. Or think of a person who grew up being called problematic, difficult, too intense. To survive, they create the persona of the nice person, who pleases everyone, who never says no, who swallows their own tears to avoid conflicts. But behind this mask, there is accumulated anger, suffocated sadness, a desire to scream. This persona protected them in childhood, but in adulthood, it turns them into a ticking time bomb ready to explode, or into a person completely disconnected from their own desires. The persona starts as protection, but it transforms into a prison. And this prison has invisible bars made of fear, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of discovering who we really are, and who we might lose if we show our true face. And mind you, the persona is not something we can simply throw away. Jung did not believe that the solution was to live without a mask. It would be impossible, and even dangerous. The issue is not to destroy the persona, but to become aware that it is just a part of us, not the whole. We need to know when we are speaking, feeling, choosing through the persona, and when we are acting from our deepest, truest self. When we live only through the persona, we become predictable. Our reactions are automatic. We live trapped in the same patterns. There is no real freedom. We are, as Jung said, living scripts written by the past. And as long as we remain identified with these masks, we will always be trapped in the roles that our past forced us to assume to survive. The good news is that there is a way that necessarily involves recognizing the projections we make and the masks we wear. Because, as Jung believed, only when we look at these unconscious mechanisms can we begin to live the present with authenticity and build a future different from our past. For Jung, liberation does not come from trying to forget the past, but from recognizing with courage when we are reacting to the present as if it were the past. It is about this liberation that we will talk in the next part. For Jung, true freedom does not arise from the simple act of leaving the past behind. It is not just about turning the page, ignoring the pain, or repeating motivational phrases to oneself. On the contrary, Jung believed that the only way to free ourselves from the past is to look directly at it. But it is not just any look. It is not enough to recall painful events or talk about them endlessly. Something much deeper is required, recognizing when we are reacting to the present as if it were the past. This, for Jung, was the great key to liberation. Take, for example, someone who constantly sabotages themselves professionally. Whenever they receive an opportunity, an internal voice arises saying they are not good enough. This person may even know intellectually that they had critical parents or teachers who belittled them. They may have even done therapy, telling their story 1,000 times. But if they cannot perceive, at the exact moment they are living in the present, that this internal voice is not about the now, but about the past, they will remain trapped in the same pattern. It is at this point that the concept of awareness comes in. Jung saw the psyche as a self-organizing system. The unconscious is not there just to sabotage us. It wants to balance us, to heal us. However, as long as we do not bring certain contents to consciousness, they continue to act in the shadows. They keep making us react to life as if we were still that wounded child, or that humiliated young person, or that betrayed individual. Freedom for Jung arises when we can perceive, at the moment something happens, that the intensity of our reaction is greater than the fact justifies. It is when we can stop and ask, what I am feeling now is about this situation, or about something much older. It is when we can see that we are projecting something of ours onto the other, and not just seeing reality as it is. And do not be mistaken, this is not easy. It is painful because it requires looking at parts of ourselves that we would prefer to ignore. It requires recognizing that many times we are stuck in old scripts, that we have become predictable, that we are repeating patterns that no longer serve us. But it is precisely there that the chance to change lies. When we have this clarity, we open a small space between the stimulus and the reaction. And it is in this space that freedom is born. Because, as Jung said, we cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Pretending that everything is fine, trying to think positive without looking at the wounds, only increases the power of the unconscious. When we stop pushing our pains into the unconscious, we cease to live under the tyranny of the ghosts of the past. And, make no mistake, this freedom is not magical. It does not happen overnight. It is a process, a path that needs to be walked step by step. But every time you manage to recognize that you are reacting to the past and not to the present, you take an immense step toward authenticity, lightness, and the possibility of building something new. And it is precisely about practical paths in this direction that we will talk about in the next part. Jung said that intellectual knowledge is not enough. It is necessary to act, feel, experience. So I want to share with you some practical paths that can serve as first steps on this journey of liberation. 1. Cultivate self-observation without judgment. Observe yourself with curiosity, almost scientifically, without criticism or judgment. Ask yourself several times a day, what am I feeling right now? What is really bothering me in this situation? Does this emotion I feel seem bigger than the fact itself would justify? Is there something about this person or this situation that reminds me of someone or something from my past? If the answer is yes, if you notice that you are reacting disproportionately, this is a valuable sign that there may be a projection happening. This is where the work of differentiating what is present and what is past begins. 2. Keep a reflective journal. Jung believed that writing helps to give shape to what is unconscious. A journal does not need to be a novel. It is enough, for example, to write at the end of the day, in which moments did I feel most shaken today? Were there situations that triggered strong reactions in me? Who or what does this remind me of from my past? The simple act of writing begins to illuminate patterns. Many people, when rereading their notes after a few days, notice connections they had not seen before. 3. Pay attention to your personas. Start identifying the masks you wear. Ask yourself, what image am I trying to project to others right now? Who would I be if I weren't trying to please, seem strong, seem cheerful, seem in control? What do I fear will happen if I show who I really am? This does not mean revealing everything to everyone. It means, above all, knowing when you are playing a role and when you are being genuine. Just this recognition already diminishes the power of the persona over you. 4. Allow yourself to feel. One of the great traps that keeps the past alive in us is the tendency to flee from uncomfortable emotions. When you feel sadness, fear, anger, or anguish, try just to feel, without immediately trying to resolve or push it away. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? Where do I feel this in my body? If this emotion could speak, what would it say? Mindfulness of sensations helps to unlock repressed emotions and often reveals important memories or insights about the past that is being projected into the present. 5. Seek safe reflection spaces. As much as many things can be done alone, there are situations where it is essential to have a safe space where you can explore your emotions and patterns without fear of judgment. Analytical therapy, Jungian psychotherapy, or even therapeutic groups can offer this space. Jung said that the unconscious often needs an other to reveal itself. Sometimes, we need someone to help us see what we cannot see alone. With every small awareness you gain, every moment you notice yourself acting as if the present were the past, and choose to do differently, is a giant step toward freedom. You are not your past. What happened to you, the pains you experienced, the words you heard, the traumas you endured, all of this is part of your story, but it doesn't have to write your future anymore. This means that true freedom comes from looking at the past with courage, from recognizing when we are acting in the present as if we are still trapped in those old situations. It comes from realizing that often the one talking to our boss, our partner, our friend, is not the adult we are today, but the wounded child, the frightened teenager, the frustrated young person who still lives inside us. Every time you ask questions, you create a space. And it is in that space that freedom is born. It is in that space that you stop reacting automatically. It is in that space that you finally begin to choose to build something new instead of repeating the old. Because you deserve that. You deserve to live a life that is yours, and not just a repetition of the stories that hurt you. Your future deserves to be yours, written by you, and not by the old voices that insist on saying that nothing will change. Now, I would love to know, what about the topic discussed today resonated with you the most? Did you identify with any pattern? Share with me here in the comments. You can't imagine how putting this into words can be a first step to transforming everything. And if you felt that this video brought you important reflections, don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel and continue with me. The next video is equally important on this journey. I'll see you there.